I am so thrilled to be able to introduce David L. Robbins. He's a best-selling novelist, an educator, a playwright, an essayist, and a philanthropist, an all-around important guy, and really an amazing writer. His 14 novels include historical fiction, alternate history, and thrillers. He's also written and had produced 4 plays, is a regular contributor to Boomer magazine, and is the co-founder of the James River Writers and of the Podium Foundation to provide city youth with writing and communication skills. It's such a cool effort. In 2014, he started the Mighty Pen Project. We just heard Lucy talking about that, to help veterans share their stories. And Mr. Robbins was named by the Virginia Commission for the Arts as one of the 2 most important writers in the state of Virginia for the last 50 years. And all the people in here who've ever taken writing classes from me have heard some of his writing, because I always use examples from that for talking about characterization. So here he is, and I'd like to introduce David Robbins. And David, take it away, and we'll try to be quiet. So I ask everybody else to set their microphones on mute, please.
I like a noise. That's the problem with Zoom, is it's quiet. You know, I like laughter. I like shuffling. So if I say something and if you've got the physical control, quickly unmute, laugh, and then mute again, because it's like making a billboard laugh. It's just not fun. Thank you for that long bio. So that's it. That's what I like. I've got what's called Carl Yastrzemski statistics. You know, Yastrzemski was a good ball player, but he was a good ball player for 23 years. So by the time he was done, he had his Hall of Fame stats. And I've done nothing exceptional. It's just that I've done stuff for a long time, and the aggregate sounds important. But thank you for that, Sarah. So I'm gonna, here's what I plan to do. I'm gonna yak for about 45 minutes, then I'm gonna hit the brakes. I'm gonna ask for questions. Please feel free to ask any question you want. You need not be about what I talked about. You got me for 15 minutes. I hope that I'll be able to come out in person next year, but I thank Sarah very much for this invitation. So I'm just gonna go for 45 minutes, and when I stop, send your questions to Sarah. Send them now, and they'll be in the queue when we get going. So here we go. So I have, I think I'm a rare dog in one specific way. Is I not only am a writer, but I'm a teacher of writing, and that gives me a slight advantage with these kind of things, because I am not talking theoretically. Everything I talk about and every question you can ask me is a question I wrestle with at that desk right there every day. So if you say, what's the purpose of dialogue? I'm gonna go, well, today if you say, what's the best way to something? I go, oh, yesterday So I've sat in a lot of writing classes and things as an observer, and I find a lot of writing teachers are strong in one area or another. You have really good writers who have a difficult time articulating, and you got really great writing teachers who don't really understand the mechanics, the day-to-day issues you face as writers. So that's my preamble. My approach is I am going to, for 45 minutes or 43 now, amplify mostly mechanistic, stylistic, technique things, and leave the creativity and the artistry to you. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm not here to say, get in touch with your gift. I'm not here to say, go to that little secret garden along that little beautiful path under whatever jacaranda trees you have and wherever you are. I don't care about that. That's you. That's nothing anybody can teach you. You have that. But if you can go to any work site you want, but if you don't have the tools and your lunch packed, you can't work well. I'm a lunch packer. I'm the guy that packs your chute. Jump out of the plane, go, because I'm going to help you pack your chute. And you know, well, I can jump out of the plane now because I trust my chute. So I'm going to talk a lot about technique things, and the purpose of that is twofold. One is, I know you're all dedicated writers. You're here not because you're not dedicated. You're here because you care, and you want this experience of being published and being read and being influential. And I get it. I get it. I'm driven by that too. But it's scary, right? If all we writing teachers do is talk to you about inspiration and your gift and which genre to pursue and whether a vampire is more popular than a witch or a werewolf, it can get daunting. You can say, well, geez, I don't know what direction to turn, because too many writing teachers say, well, let's talk about your story. Let's talk about your voice. I don't care about your story. I don't care about your voice. That's yours. What I care about is that when you sit and put your fingers on the keys, you have a lunchbox packed and a tool bag ready to go. And then if you're standing on solid ground technique-wise, then your voice and your individual stories can then ascend much more confidently. So I try to talk about the things that don't move. I'm going to discuss, with the 40 minutes I have now, what I consider to be some of the pillars of good writing that are in every story. They're in every song lyric. They're in every painting. They're in every art form, and that's just storytelling. And believe it or not, every one of you in your hundreds online here has at some point looked at an opera singer, a jazz pianist, a Monet painting, a professional athlete, listened to Springsteen, and you said to yourself, I can't do that. I mean, who among us goes to see the opera or the ballet and goes, yeah, I'm gonna do that in my spare time? But how many of you heard people say, I'm going to write in my spare time, like it's a thing you do? And I'm here to tell you, you can't. Writing has as much technique as any jazz pianist. Writing has as much immutable, repeatable, predictable, formatable, reliable technique pillars, just like a dancer, just like a painter, just like any musician. So I'm here to sort of undaunt painting for you. Painting. I'm here to undaunt writing, because I don't want you to feel daunted. I want you to go like, oh no, I might not be creative enough. I might not be smart enough. Well, you might not be, but you know what? If you have proper technique, whatever it is you are can come to the fore. You can get 100% of your game on the page if I stop talking about what I'm going to do and start actually doing it. So here we go. So I broke this down for my own purposes, for my 45-minute purposes, to 3 real keys. Now I want to be, well, 4. And I want to be clear that these are not 4 options. These are not 4 things you can kind of go, if I can be convincing, you will leave our session together saying, oh my gosh, these 4 things are in everything I've tried to do. And they're in every good story you've read. And hopefully there will be and are in every good story you'll write. So I'm going to start. I'll give you my little list quick. The first one is point of view. What is point of view? How does point of view factor into a story? Why is it so important? Why did I mention it first? The second thing is integration. And by integration, I mean everything that's not POV. Everything else. There's POV, and there literally is everything else. All right? Why is that the second thing? The third thing is the old saw, show, don't tell. And I'm here to tell you, I'm the only writing teacher you will ever talk to who will tell you why show, don't tell. Everybody else just says, well, you show, you don't tell. Then they don't tell you why. Why is showing better than telling? What is showing doing that telling doesn't do, right? Because you'll hear, Nat, it was an info dump and you got to show, not tell. Like, okay, but why? Because if you understand why, you'll be able to apply that better. You'll understand, again, the mechanics of it. And the third thing is, the fourth thing I'll leave as a secret. I'll unwrap it when I get there. And it may be the most important of the 4, but I don't think it'll be understandable in context if I don't do the first 3. So POV, let's start with POV. And I apologize, I speak quickly when I get nervous. And you know, I'm actually less nervous in a room full of you in person than I am on camera, because I got nothing to bounce off of. So if I'm going too quickly, tell Sarah to tell me to slow down. Okay, so I'm gonna rock. Point of view. So here's why point of view matters. Point of view matters not for reasons you think it matters. Let's think about what a story is and when a story works and when a story does not work. A story will work at its best. Why does Harry Potter work? Okay, now, I don't know about you, but I don't think J.K. Rowling can write 5 sentences without 12 mistakes. I don't think she's a talented or gifted crafter of language at all. But she may be the most inventive writer of her generation. And she created a character, Harry Potter, that I don't care who you are, I don't care where you're from, you can identify. Now, why can you identify? Because she does such a great job establishing a character that we can be empathetic with. We We've all been children. We've all had friends. We've all lost lost loved ones like his parents. We've all had allies and what we consider enemies, on and on. The point of view is to create for the reader, not the writer now, not the story, for the reader, to create for the reader the character I inhabit on the page. I must have a cohort, an alternate, an opposite, an avatar on the page. If I do not have somebody on the page that I can work with and identify with, then I'm what? Then I'm cast in the only other option is to be an observer on the book. If I'm not the POV, there is nothing left to me than whatever's not POV, which is an observer. If I'm an observer in the book, then I am you looking at me, right? You're not me looking at me, you're me looking at you. You are you looking at me. You are watching the story. And if we leave our reader watching our stories, you'll find, by the way, I have a lot of anecdotes. Here's an anecdote that gives you an example. Meg Radigan in her purple shirt caught my eye. Meg and I go to an amusement park. And in that amusement park, Meg, there is a roller coaster. And you say to me, that looks fun. And I go, yes, it does look fun. And then I say, Meg, here's an idea. Let's get on it. And suddenly it doesn't look fun. It is fun. This is the difference between POV, a well-selected and well-crafted POV, and not. If you leave the reader watching your story, then the best story you can write is good. You cannot write a great book, story, anything, unless and until I'm on the ride. You can't move me, touch me, anything. You can interest me. You can perhaps even on occasionally make me curious and thrill me, but you cannot touch me. If you leave me in the realm of, as a reader, of watching your story, then I am in effect having the same impact that you can have on me with a documentary. Now, no one cries when they're watching about eating too much McDonald's food. No one cries when we watch about when we kill too many animals or there's too much methane in the air. We don't cry, right? We could watch the most beautiful documentary that Ken Burns can give us about Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King, on and on. But you don't cry. We cry when we watch fiction. We cry when we watch stories because we have the advantage of POV. So if you leave the reader at a distance, the best you can achieve is a distant story. Now, POV. Why? The reason for this is because I can only identify, I, human being, at least I aspire to be a human being, I, human being, can only understand the workings of another human being. My mother, the car, remember that, the old Disney thing? Great, okay, but I can't be a car. I have to be the driver of that car. I must, the stories that will move us, so the stories where we can be empathetic, that means I must see myself in your work. Now, what is myself? Myself is a very broad term. I must see a human being because I'm just going to pick people that are on the screen in front of me. Roscoe, you've lost your mom and dad. I'm going to guess. So have I. Roscoe, you've been frightened in your life. So have I. You have had friends that have stood by you. So have I. You've lost those friends to betrayal, drugs, alcohol, suicide, tragic things. So have I. You've known people who have been in the military. So have I. Right? If we write experiences and insights that our reader can understand, then the story is a bridge. A bridge to where? People. It's a bridge to myself. What more powerful thing can you do to bring me into your story than show me a mirror? Now, you can show me Vietnam, you can show me Mars, you can show me a bank robbery, but if you show me in those places, I'm going to go. Because even a dog will watch a TV show that has what? A dog on it. Right? So if you show me a story that explores humanity. Now, notice I use the word explore. Take this note. The best stories explore and experience. Now, what happens is when you fail, and we do, it's because you fail to do both of these, interior and exterior, explore and experience. You give me the experience. You give me the sit rep. I teach a lot of veterans, as Sarah mentioned. I also teach a lot of police, fire, and EMS. And when I teach people that have traumatic backgrounds and traumatic stories, they tend to sit rep. They tend to say, well, the alarm went off at 10:05. We slid down the pole. We put out a 3-alarm fire. There were 3 deaths. Da, da, da. I'm like, whoa, you just told me you went to a fire where people died. I mean, well, you know, you can't feel. I go, okay. Not feeling is something I want you to explore. If you can't turn on your humanity when you're exploring the death of the people that you're serving, then explore the costs of taking away your feeling. So you understand, you must not only give me the experience of being a fireman sliding down the pole, running into a building, you must give me the exploration of that. And that exploration and experience leads me to my next to last point on POV, because I am going quickly. And that is profound versus actual truth. Now, I sound smart when I say this. It's the only thing I know Aristotle said, but he gave us a definition of profound versus what's the other? Profound and I just forgot what I said. Actual, profound and actual truth. He says actual truth is that truth, the opposite of which is false. So 2 plus 2 is 5. It's always wrong. It's always wrong. Always, always, always wrong. Right? So actual truth must be true, and any other truth is false. Profound truth is that truth, the opposite of which may also be true. What is the opposite of love? Indifference. What's the opposite of hate? Love. What's the opposite of courage? Cowardice. What's the opposite of fill in the blank? Fill in the blank. They're both true, right? So we must explore both. You must have actual truths. You must know your business. If you're writing about Vietnam, then you'd better know something about Vietnam, because Vietnam vets are reading this. If you're writing about a woman running a restaurant, I don't mean to say a woman, sorry, but a person running a restaurant, you best know something about food and restaurants, right? So you must know your actual truths. That's the interest. That, Meg, is the framework of the roller coaster. Your actual truth is the roller coaster. Profound truths is the car we get in on that roller coaster, right? So this leads me to make sure this will lead me right into, it's a little too soon to get a show to tell. I'll come back to show don't tell. But keep in mind that if you make this mistake on the page by saying, Carol was frightened when what did you just do? You just turned a profound truth into an actual truth. If you tell me what a character feels, if you conclude or interpret or sum up, a burst of fright ran across her shoulders when he was angry when then you turned a profound truth that I as the reader, should have been able to conclude on my own. I should be able to say, oh man, I bet he's afraid right now, right? Because if I say RJ is afraid, I say, what? We're afraid, because I made that conclusion. But if you put on the page, RJ was afraid when you turned a profound truth and an opportunity for your reader to engage and understand and interpret for his or herself into an actual truth, which is kind of dead. So 2 plus 2 is 4. Now, what's more moving for you as an observer of the world? Asking yourself, why did he do that? Versus, oh, this is why he did it, right? So it's okay to say it's a 50 caliber gun with a 1.2 mile range. Okay, it's an actual truth. Don't say 1.3 miles, because some special services guy's going to go, oh, sorry, but that was 1.2. Those are actual truths. Don't take profound truths and turn them into something as kind of commonplace as an actual truth. Let the reader have some negative space. Invite me in. Hey, Mr. Reader, I'm going to tell you what my character did. So my last thing on this particular point is another little anecdote. Imagine I have a little girl in a story who says to her father, Daddy, I want a pony. What do I have? I have a little girl who says she wants a pony. That's all I know. Now, what if I say I have a little girl who steals a pony? What do I have? I have a thief. Big difference. Big difference. Huge difference. If you write a story where you have a little girl saying, I want a pony, then the reader's going to go, I heard that. I observed that. It was a statement. We'll go on its pony. If you come to me and say that kid stole a pony, then, oh my God, look at the profound truths. How did a child steal a pony? Who raised a child that goes out and steals ponies? What kind of background does this kid have? And we could just do hours of profound questioning about a child who goes and steals a pony. But when you write, you need to understand, invite the reader to fill in some of the gaps. I call it negative space writing. Define the donut by defining the donut hole, right? Describe me what's not there. And the reader will go, I bet there's a donut around that hole. I mean, I'm going to guess here, but I'm gonna figure there's a donut around that hole. So if you give me the donut, you've given me an actual truth, and I'm okay with actual truths. Actual truths are, as I've said to Meg, are the superstructure that the roller coaster is made of. But to get me on the ride, you must give me a POV that is not so, you don't reveal everything about the POV so that I feel I'm reading a documentary about this character. Now, POV, last thing about POV, we understand a POV must be a reflection of the thing that each of us is the most familiar with, which is ourselves. And ourselves is a complex, multifaceted thing made up of loss and gain, victory, defeat, depression, exaltation, you name it, the human experience. It's more important that you understand both than one or the other. Inside must march alongside outside. You just can't have a cop walk into a building where there's been a bad drug bust and there's a bunch of blood and dead bodies without telling you what's going on in that cop's head. And if the answer is nothing is going on in that cop's head, fascinating. What kind of character feels nothing, right? I know it. You've all done that. You've all said he locked away his feelings when he wouldn't let him feel fine. That's cool. Good. Explore the cost of removing your humanity as a character. Everything must be human. I have feelings. Ergo, if my character on the page has none, I can't what? I can't make him a car on the ride because I can't get in that car. I can't get into a character who won't feel because I feel. And guess what? You do too. So remember, as best you can in everything you write, whether it's a vampire killer or a romance or a bodice ripper or anything, you create a ride that your reader wants to get on when you create another human being. And leave that human being fuzzy enough along the edges so that there's profound truths, right? Not actual truths. Don't tell the reader she was afraid when she was happy when she. Because like, well, okay, no work for me here because I just got told. And you take a profound truth, you make it an actual truth. Now, selecting POVs, real quick. Here's the trick. Here's the game. Here's how you do it. You are a bumblebee. You're the writer. And you have all these flowers right in front of you. They're all your POVs. Before you write a chapter, before you write a book, before you write a short story, before you write anything, line up all your POVs. Line them all up. I don't care if it's a waitress comes in and says your coffee's ready. Line her up. Everybody who's got a line. Now, if the extras in your story have no lines, don't bring them in. These are all speaking roles, okay? Line them all up and ask a couple questions. Question number one is, which one of you makes a choice? Which one of you decides something? And second question is, does that decision turn into an action? Like a little girl wants a pony, but it becomes an action when she steals it. See the difference? And the third thing is, which of these characters is the most dynamic? Not the most interesting, not living the most remarkable, tropical, colorful life, but the most dynamic, meaning which one of them is the dynamo that drives the story. In this way, you will avoid what I call victim fiction. If you're writing a story about a kidnapping, do not write it from the viewpoint of the kidnappee, because all this person does is get snatched and thrown into a hole and have terrible things happen. No, where's the exploration in that? I want to know about there's so many stop signs in our culture that says, don't kidnap people. So what kind of person blows through that sign? What kind of person says, I'm doing it anyway? All right, now we're talking about a character who makes a choice, unsavory character. Maybe kidnapping is not the best example, but I'm here, so may as well shop. But I've got a character that's made a choice, that's taken an action, driving the story, and then I got all my POVs lined up. I'm like, sorry, Bob, sorry, Eddie, sorry, Edna, sorry, Josephine, but I'm going with Carl because Carl's driving this bus, right? And then then watch how better your stories get. Because each of you, me included, you know what I mean. You have taken your story and you put it on your shoulder and you have hauled it. You've hauled it along. You're like, oh, I'm stuck. I don't know, whatever, right? Anytime you feel yourself out in front of your story, providing your story's energy, you need to scrap it. Trust me on this. If you don't know the middle, if you're just like, oh, I don't know what to do next, then you've got the wrong POVs. 10 out of 10, you have the wrong POV. You need a POV where you have to put on your track shoes as a writer and keep up with. You pick a guy who did the kidnapping, you're going to go like, wow, I don't know where to go next. I look at your faces, like, yeah, I would not know how to write a kidnapper because it's so antithetical to our nature, right? But guess what? Guess what? As writers, what if you explore that? What if you were to read about actual cases? What if you were to imagine kidnapping somebody? What would you? What are the motivations? What are the sicknesses? What are the cultural stepping stones that we had to leap over? All the stop signs we had to blow through. I mean, I walk outside my house, it says, "Don't kidnap people." It's a big sign. Every day I see it. You'd think it'd be inculcated by now, but what if I decided to do it anyway? What a fascinating character. Guess what? This mushy middle that people have to talk about goes away. It's not there. If you write a story that you are behind, not in front, but behind, you need to write stories that you chase. You need to write stories you go, "Oh my God, am I big enough for this? Am I smart enough for this? Am I human enough for this? Do I feel enough for this? Am I gifted enough for this?" Write that story. If you're in front and you go, "Oh, I don't know what to do," because you're pulling it. You need to write the story. This is where POV is so important. You pick the right POV for your story, not the bank guard who lays face down on the carpet during the bank robbery, but the bank guard that gets up and chases him down the street and takes a bullet for it. And his wife divorces him because he's no longer an earner. And his boss fires him because "I didn't hire you to be a hero." And then he ends up being becoming a vigilante in Botswana. I don't care. But that guy, you line up all your POVs, you go, clearly it's Bill. But the guard who doesn't get off the ground goes, "Oh, it was so scary." I don't want him. Why would I want to be that guy? I want the dynamic character, the one who chooses, whose choices become action, and whose action drives the story. Those three questions. Line up all your POVs, and they may surprise you. You may end up with a POV like, "I would never have thought to tell it from Daisy's viewpoint," but frankly, Daisy's the one who ends up making the choice. I thought I would go with her mom. I thought Mom, who was the drug addict and had all the problems, would be the POV. But Daisy's the one who makes the choices and goes to school, becomes a doctor, and da-da-da-da-da, right? So you'll find surprises if you take this trick. Line them up. Pick the right one. All right, moving along. That good so far? Yeah, yeah? See, that's why this whole mute thing sucks, because if you were in person, you'd be like, "Yeah!" Thank you. All right, number 2. Integrated setting. So what? Oh, that was a go. Good. I'm going. Integrated setting. Why do I care about integrated setting? All right. I'm even speaking quickly for me. Integrated setting means what else beyond your POV? What is the garden your POV grows in? Well, it's everything else. And by everything else, I mean metaphysically everything else. A tree is the same as a secondary character to me. I don't care if it's not your POV, if it's not the I or the he in your story, it is part of setting. And what is the purpose of setting? The purpose of setting is to draw out, betray, reveal, trip up, dig into that POV. The only reason I have Sancho Panza is to give Quixote someone to talk to. The only reason I have Robin is to give Batman someone to talk to. The only reason I have, most of us have our spouses to give us someone to talk to. Right? So you have to understand that characters, your POV is it's the king on the chessboard, and everything else can die. Everything else is sacrificial to that king on a chessboard, as in everything. There aren't pieces where you go, "Oh, well, if I lose that rook, I lose the game." No, POV is the king, and every other character does one thing, and that is defend that king. So in your story, don't let these secondary and tertiary characters take over. Don't let them get their own stories. I mean, how many times have I heard this? Like, "Oh, I came up with this fascinating character. He kind of took over." I said, "Well, then you picked the wrong POV from the start out. You anointed the wrong king. You picked the right POV. You don't have this issue of secondary and tertiary characters taking over. Why? Because they never get a chance to play any role other than to die for the king." So it's important that now, if I have a monkey, and Lisa says to me, "Well, David, how can I write a story that shows what a monkey can do?" And a monkey being a euphemism for a character who's got a set of traits we'd like to learn about. So I say, "Well, Lisa, let's try this. Give the monkey a pencil." And Lisa's like, "Okay." So she writes to you, "A monkey has a pencil. What's a monkey do?" "I don't know, he throws it, he eats it, he breaks it." Lisa, "Give the monkey a bicycle." So what the monkey does, he looks at the bicycle and has no freaking idea what to do with that. And I say, Lisa, give the monkey a branch. Suddenly, what? Like, whoa, look at the monkey. Suddenly we've given the monkey a setting that can integrate into the character. So I challenge all of you to tell me why you would put a character on the phone. On the phone. How does that challenge and reveal a character? Why would you put a character in a car? Unless that car is going off a cliff or going to a robbery or something, why would you put a character at a breakfast table with mom and dad? And hey, Skippy, big game today. Yeah, you want those special lucky cinnamon flake pancakes? Thanks, mom. Hey, sport, good luck today. Why would you do that? Someone better get poisoned because nothing's being revealed in this setting. So integrate your setting with your characters. So if you want to find out what a guy's going to do, shoot at him. You want to find out what a guy's going to do, break his heart or let him find out he has one. If you want to know what a character is going to do, don't set him in a boardroom in San Francisco. Put him in the desert, barefoot, with scorpions in his way, and he's got half a bottle of Jack Daniels and a big dog that's looking at him hungry, right? Read Jack London. There's not a scene in the entire oeuvre of Jack London, or Hemingway for that matter, that is not a character itself, and that character is doing one thing. It's poking that POV going, hey, 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 I'm not done. Hey, I got 400 pages of this. Hey, 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 hey. That's what everything else in your books must do. Do not waste a scene with a kitchen table. Do not waste a scene on the phone if your characters can be in person. Do not waste a scene with agreeance. I don't care about characters that agree with each other. Why would I want that? I want to read an argument. That was a great movie, wasn't it? Oh, I love the part where she comes out of the gorilla suit and he finds out that it was his sister all along. I know. No, that was terrible. Yes, it was. I loved it. No, why did you? I want disputation. I want characters that pull at each other and tug at each other, that reveal each other, right? Characters that say hello. I cut it. I go, why'd you say hello? Hello in order to what? Don't I assume that they're greeting? So don't waste language. Don't waste moments. Take your setting, and remember, setting is everything but your POV, right? And use that setting to reveal, trip up your. It's like Meg, to go back to the roller coaster. What if there was a point in the roller coaster just flat, like, and then it was this long thing? We're like, what's the purpose of that? It's not making us scream. It's not making us throw our hands. It's just this long flat thing. Well, that's a breakfast table. That's a phone call. That's a car ride. Right? I want to go up, I want to go down, I want to go twisty, I want to go under the water, I want to do things. You do that by setting. Endanger your character, embrace your character, threaten them, let them sleep well, whatever they need to do, but don't waste setting. And remember, setting is also other characters. So when you're designing your story, you're doing your POV lineup, remember, you pick your POV, you pick your king, and then design the characters and the setting, whether it's a truck in World War II, whether it's a rocket ship to Mars, whether it's an anti-gravity chamber, whether it's the past or the future, and then go beyond that, whether it's Sancho Panza or Daffy Duck or whatever your secondary characters are. And then your time, your setting, your place. Who is it? Where is it? When is it? Why is it? How is it? All of that is to reveal one thing, and that is your main character is a coward, or your main character is a hard-loving, loyal cowboy, or your main character is secretly, closetedly a Republican, and he's been acting like he's liberal his whole life, or he's liberal, he needs to be a Republican, whatever. Whatever your character, your main character needs to be, design the world around him that will show it to the reader, that will show it, not tell us, but will show it. Because if I need to have a brave character, put that brave character in danger, and then at the end I'll go, well, she was brave. That's a brave gal there, you know, not because what I'm told, but because what I see. So use your settings, right? Now I'll pause and ask you to understand what I'm doing. I'm showing you that there are manipulable pillars in every story. Things you didn't know are in there. I'm lifting up the hood on a story. You're supposed to go, oh, I'm beginning to see how this engine works. And if you understand that writing, like any other art form, is an engine that has a magic of movement. Okay, great. The magic we can't capture. That's yours alone. But the mechanics of it, we can capture. So I'm trying to show you, hey, it's not all your inspiration. There's technique here, right? And I've given you two great ones. I'm going to give you a third one. The classic saw of show, don't tell, right? This is a big one, and it's one that you hear a lot. We hear, oh, hey, Caroline, the first page of your book was all show, don't tell. And you're going to go, whoa, wait a minute. This is all stuff that my character needs to know, my reader needs to know. I go, yeah, but. So why do we show and not tell? Let me check my watch to see I'm doing. Oh, yeah, I'm sprinting right along. I got 10 more minutes. I can do this. We show rather than tell because of everything I just said. When you tell me, the reader becomes passive, right? When you say she was frightened when she loved him when he knew that he recognized, he thought, all that, right? When you take that out of the reader's hands, when you tell, when you say, the Garrett Castle stood on Garrett Hill for 200 years. The family was barons of coal and timber. The Garrett family had been wealthy in these parts for 2 centuries. The children tended to be ne'er-do-wells and skipped generations. Now the Garrett family had spread out around the countryside as judges and cattle owners. I'm just doing the Western thing for you. If it was out east, I'd be talking about something else. All right. And I'm reading that just going, okay, tapping my finger like, got no POV, and who's telling me all of this? That's info dump. All we got to do is say, Dale arrived at the foot of Garrett Mansion, dropped his luggage in the shadow of the largest building he'd ever seen. A butler came out, oh, Mr. Garrett, you're welcome to your family homestead. And then we end up showing Dale Garrett looking at his family mansion he's never seen before because he's from back east, and what do we know? And so we conclude, we go, I bet he's overwhelmed. I bet he's really eager and somewhat anxious and kind of afraid to meet the family that built this big thing. He's just a putz who found out that he was an heir when some great grandfather died and put him in a will, and he came, that story. We have a choice. We can tell the reader everything up front, or we can see it through the eyes of Dale Garrett, who I'm going to assume is behind that picture. And so you see, so the difference between show don't tell is the same difference. Oh, there he is. Hey, Dale. Sorry to use you, man, but you want me to leave you alone? Keep your camera on. That's my rule. Carol and Patricia.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I'm going after Carol and Patricia. They're next. So we show and don't tell because if you tell, again, like I said earlier, you're turning profound truths into actual truths. They're just not as interesting. They're just not as engaged. Now, the real thing is this. I love this part of my lecture. Of all the art forms, from painting to dance to music to poetry, well, not poetry because that's written, but to all the physical art forms, the ones where you create a thing, throwing pottery, gardening, dance, anything. The audience to a live performance or a live sporting event or a painting in a museum or a sculpture or Springsteen concert or a movie or a photograph, the audience is largely, to varying degrees, passive. Springsteen, much to my dismay, does not know I'm singing along. I've called him on the phone many times and sung to him. He hangs up. He doesn't care. Steven Spielberg doesn't know that I think he's a terrible director. He just doesn't care. I've called him. I said, Steve, 58? I'm 8mm. What are you thinking? Worst movie ever made. He hangs up. They don't know. They don't care. Monet doesn't know that I literally would die to own a water lily. He doesn't know. He's dead, and there's the painting. So I'm passive as an observer. I was a college athlete, and that was the last time I influenced, a game, because I can't influence it from the stands or the TV, right? So every art form leaves the audience passive, but ours. We are nothing but the architect. We are nothing but the architect. The reader's the builder, right? If we don't do our job well, then the reader doesn't have good blueprints to build the story from, which is why I want vivid description, why I want visual setting, why I want the right dynamic POV, all the stuff I want. Is that if you show rather than tell, you increase the reader's natural tendency to be passive, because every other art form, from sports to television to movies, requires me to what? Sit on my ass, right? It does. So my default setting is to sit on my ass and let things come to me, because that's what I do with Netflix every night. Netflix and COVID have ruined me as a reader. I am now a sofa worm. I used to be a reader. Now I just watch Netflix because of COVID. But my natural tendency, your natural tendency as an audience for art, is to be passive. It just is. It just is. Man, we go back to our amusement park. There are 150,000 people in the amusement park that day. There's only 40 on the ride, right, at a time. So the default setting for most of us is to watch. And your default setting as a writer must be to not allow your reader to settle back into a passive role. Your reader will, if you let them. If you say Lucy was really frightened, when your reader will go like, okay, I guess she's frightened. But if you say Lucy, shot the bolt on her shotgun, shouted into the shadows, who's there? You're going to go, oh, I bet she's scared, because I'm feeling a little fear myself. But if you say Lucy was really scared when she, so you see the showing, don't telling thing. If you show, you turn on my active imagination. You turn on my desire to fill a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. So does the human mind. Create vacuums and invite the reader to flow into those gaps. When you do that, you find the next thing is your reader is strapped into that ride with his hands over her head, screaming, "Wee," going down a damn slope on a roller coaster, and you got them, and you got them. But you lose them when you tell. That's why show, don't tell. That's why when you start your stories, do not do an info dump. It's not that you're not inventive and creative, and it's not that you didn't, come up with some really cool world to tell the reader. You did. Nothing wrong endemically with the information. But the delivery vehicle creates a passive tone between the book and the reader. Create an active tone, and we're on the ride. And trust me, people, you put me on the ride. If I'm there, let's go kill vampires. Let's go kidnap children and do unspeakable things. Let's go rescue those children, right? Once I'm in, I'm sorry about that's not where my head really needs to go. Sorry. Even I'm a little alarmed at these things. Stop that. But what I'm saying is, once you have the reader on the ride, and they're strapped in, I'm just going to say it. I hope this isn't offensive, but fuck them. They're strapped in and the ride's going. You can scream all you want. Let me off, mommy, I'm scared. Tough. You're on the ride, right? You're strapped in. You're going where I want you to go. That's the power of showing and not telling. You tell me, I'm going to watch that ride. You show me, then I, like I said, nature abhors a vacuum. I fill in the gaps, right? I do. And when you make me rush into your character, then you lock me in, you strap me down, you pull the switch, and you set me on the ride. And you cannot do that without a strong POV, without integrating the setting, which means you pick the right POV, put them in the right place with the right characters, and you show and don't tell. Now, I have 5 minutes, I have 2 minutes to do what is perhaps the most important thing. But you'll see when I get this out, and then we'll ask questions. And thank you for listening so quietly. Okay, so here's what happens. You were made by nature, /God, /Jesus, I don't care. You were made. We're all made the same way. Now, we were made with 2 voices, the voice we think in and the voice we speak in. Those are the only 2 we were born with, right? We are higher primates, and most primates have this ability. They can think in some kind of enigmatic thing we call language, and they have some form of spoken language. That's all we have. That's not what we do as writers. We need a 3rd language, and that is the one that is not natural, not instinctive, not given to you by nature /God /Jesus. The 3rd one is the artificial one. It's the voice, and you must develop a writer's voice. Hold on, my watch is being a good boy. Thank you. You must develop a writer's voice. Now, real quick, what happens is when you write badly, people, I've been teaching everybody and everything for like 20-something years. And I couldn't figure out why everybody made the same mistakes. Why was a highly educated person making the same mistakes as a freshman in high school? Why? How could this be? Is there a don't write well school they all go to? I couldn't figure it out until it dawned on me that what we're doing is when you write a paragraph full of was's, it's because you are transcribing. You are not writing. You are transcribing your thoughts. Here's an example. I was walking out my sidewalk the other day. I was on the street. Another car was coming up the street from the right. Another car was on my left. There was this big collision. There was smoke and fire. I was running to it. There was a guy inside. I don't know if he was alive or dead, but he was hurt. Just as I was turning and I was calling into the neighborhood, people were running to me. I stopped. Now, you know what I just did? Every sentence I just said had the word was and form it to be as its verb. And you didn't hear it. You didn't hear it because that's that spoken idiom I'm talking about. You put that on the page, any writing editor worth his or her salt is going to circle every sentence and go, for God's sake, can you come up with another verb other than was or were? But I just said it and you didn't catch it. That's what I'm talking about. You cannot simply transcribe your thoughts, because if you do, you will write things like, well, or, the other, or as much as, or you'll use passive voice. My car was covered by guano, as opposed to guano covered my car. There's nothing wrong with saying my car is covered with guano, but that's a passive tense statement. As a writer, you must go guano covered my car, dynamic verbs, blah, blah, blah. This is the most important thing you can keep in mind as artists, is you must dance. Dancers don't walk, right? You must paint. Painters don't do the side of a building. You must create your art. And our art form is the only one like this, where you can get away with not being an artist. You can get away with being a transcriptionist. You can. Pick up most popular books these days. They're all I was, we were, I was. I can't read them. I have to read Nobel laureates just to read decent prose, right? So these mistakes are not made because you're stupid or untrained or bad. You don't know and don't catch yourself transcribing. Because remember, nature didn't give you the ability to write. Nature gave that ballerina the ability to dance. Nature gave that artist the ability to understand, the tonalities of key and music. We're the only art form that we made this up. Writing is not a natural imperative. Writing is not something that nature gave us. But you look at a ballerina or an athlete, you go, oh God, that's a God-given talent. Those of us old enough to remember Jim Brown as a football player, or Nureyev as a dancer, you just watch, it's a God-given talent. There's no God-given writer, because it's not something God gives. It's not something nature gives. We created this. The written form of our language is a totally human invention, right? And it's not parenthetical. It was probably the last of the great art forms to develop. There were cave painters way before there were cave writers, right? Because they were starting at a much more instinctive level. So that's the last thing I have for you is when you're writing, look at your work. And if you see a bunch of was's, and was's is a big, big tip off. It was, I was, we were. You are transcribing your thoughts and not writing. And I'll end with this. Think of a painter. Painter's got a palette. Painter's got a brush. Painter has a canvas, okay? Then you put the paint on the brush and you go, at this point, you become a writer. Your words and your story is the paint. You are the brush, but the story is neither the brush nor the palette. The story is the canvas. You must write. You must take your story and you must actually write it. And writing is not any different at all from dancing, singing, playing the guitar, and running an open field touchdown. Writing is in and of itself a separate art form, and just transcribing your story the way you hear it in your head is not writing. It is literally sitting around a campfire and telling your story onto a page. So I'll conclude and now take questions, but I want to sum up. I could do this for literally 3 hours, 24 hours a day, no pee break. There's so much to learn, but everything I would say to you has this in common. I want you to look at writing as an art form and not as solely inspiration, not as solely, well, if you're creative, you can do this. No, if you're not creative at all, you can do this. You can do it really well if you're creative. But you can write well if you understand and you study. There is technique, just like this technique to any tap dancer. There is technique. So don't be afraid of writing, but don't be overly confident about writing either. Don't just go striding into it like, well, I can read, so I can write. They're not the same. Any more than speaking is singing, any more than walking is dancing, right? Reading is not writing. But you can do it if you are studious. And now I will take questions.